You're listening to Behind the Bulldogs on News Radio WBRN.
Off the left side to the end zone. Touchdown Bulldogs.
If I'm even having like a bad day on the course or something, I just look down at it and just feel like thankful that I'm able to be out there.
Making sure that we're like where our feet are and we're not thinking about outside distractions.
Welcome in, everybody, to another exciting edition of Behind the Bulldogs, the summer series of collaboration season recaps. Brandon Worth, Brody Kaiser, Tatum Outlaw here with you. It's the whole kit and caboodle for Ferris State Athletics in a recap format. Today, as you could probably tell from this podcast, we're talking about golf. If you are on the radio with us, surprise, we're talking about golf today. But everybody is very excited for this episode. And Tatum, I know you're very excited. You've been doing your research today.
Yeah, I mean, golf had a really exciting season, so I'm just excited to recap it, talk about them, how they finished, some crucial players. It should be a good episode.
Absolutely. And Brody, I know we're looking forward to talking to the golf players to help our game this summer.
Yeah, I mean, I might need to take a few more than just, one or two tips from these guys. But I think one thing, too, when we talk about golf, it's just impressive to see what Coach Stark has done with not just the men's or the women's squad, but both squads consistently year after year. That sort of consistency is hard to find in college athletics. And to have two teams that are essentially either right on the bubble for the NCAA tournament or making the NCAA tournament, as they both did this year, each and every season, just speaks to his coaching ability and the way that the players are able to buy into what he's the way that he is trending toward the program and going in the future. And I think that's the biggest thing that we'll talk about today is just the consistency of these programs and another great year for Bulldog golf, which is awesome to see in the spring.
Absolutely. And we'll get into the full scheduled recap as well as some notable results, some things that we noticed, as well as our breakout candidates, of course. Big thanks goes out to Dazos Digital as well. Target your target audience with the experts at DazosDigital.com. You can find out more information at the website below on how they can help you and your business. Let's start on the women's side, as they were the last team to finish, which is a great problem to have. Overall, 17th place finish there in Boulder City, Nevada for the NCAA National Championships. Number one, just the fact that they got there.
Yeah.
Round of applause. That's amazing. Amazing for that team, especially all the things, and we'll obviously talk about things on the course as well as things off the course with that group. Getting through the East Regional, finishing third. It was a real this team kind of struggled out the gate, but they clawed their way back and went from basically a 316 in day one. They clawed it back. They saved 3 strokes and then saved even more on the final day to be able to qualify after finishing second in the GLIAC championships. This team was just very resilient all year long. Those ladies have a heck of a lot to be proud of this year.
Yeah, so much to be proud of. And like you said, Brandon, the first round of the NCAA tournament maybe speaks more to their season than any other single event that they had all year long. Being in, I believe they were in 8th or 9th place going into the last day, and they jumped all the way up into the top 5. It was unbelievable work from that team, and to see the resiliency from the squad. And how about I think we'd be remiss as well to not talk about the resiliency of Hallie Crozier and her journey for this women's golf team. Sad that she's not with the team and able to compete, but the support from the Bulldog Nation and everything that she's gone through and her family's gone through. So resiliency, I think, is a fantastic word for this team.
Absolutely. And just seeing that story, obviously, with Hallie's fight and how much she inspired this year's team, both sides, men's and women's, and not only the golf program. It was all 17 sports, all of us in the department. It was an impressive thing to see. And just to have that support is really incredible. We're still seeing donations being sent her way, rightfully so, which is great. She continues to battle like a bulldog, and we're supporting her throughout the fight. But even just making that, we'll touch that a little bit later, too, when we talk about the players, and especially for you, Tatum. You have the experience on a national championship stage. It is such a unique thing to be able to be there for the first time in a long time, whether it's the first time in program history or if it's, first time in the last couple of years, because the format can change so many different ways. But just to be able to be on that stage, for these players, you've got to experience it. It's a feeling that really feels like no other.
Yeah, and I think especially for this team, you can definitely tell when a team is fighting for something special, fighting for something more than just that title. And I think you could definitely see that within the women's team this year. They haven't been to the national championship since 2009, I think.
Something like that.
So that's that's awesome that they were able to go back and have a historic season. And you can definitely tell that they were fighting for something greater than just that title. I mean, they were fighting for Hallie as well. So
absolutely. And this was a team that was, ranked in the top 25, I believe, finishing out near the end of the season. Like, we were seeing them climb their way up. And I think it's super impressive just to see the fact that they got there. We had known that they've been in the regional, the men's on the same side, which we'll touch on later. But I think especially, you look at the overall layout of the schedule this year, starting with the Bulldog Classic in the fall. I mean, they played really well in the fall. They played well at home at Khaki for the Bulldog Fall Classic. Finished up third, but it was a tough competition. I mean, we were playing against some of the best of the best. Going to Indy, playing well, finishing second. They go to the Midwest Regional Preview. They win it in October. So, I mean, it feels like that really was the propeller that really moved them forward going into the spring slate. They got up to a little bit slow start, but you got to remember, it really is hard to get out and get going in outdoor just because of the fact that the weather does not cooperate at all, especially for us Michiganders here. But they battled back and they had some tough tournaments. I mean, Ken Partridge, they were 11th, I believe, at one point, finished third. They go especially to the Motor City Meltdown, the one-day event in Detroit. They finished second. Finneapolis, I mean, is always a tough event. I mean, there's so many teams, so many competitive teams. And so I think especially we're seeing the fact that they traveled well in spring break, brought that good game back with them, and that propelled what was just absolutely dialed in postseason. I think it was impressive just to see the fact that they were consistent, they were improving shot for shot, and doing everything they did in the regular season on the big stage, which not everybody can do.
Yeah, and we talked to Coach Stark back in, I believe it was October or late September, just about how those early season rounds do wonders for you when it comes to the spring, right? You're not only learning how to play good golf and improve your game, but you're also learning how to shoot well in a competition, right? So that's sort of the goal there in the spring, in the fall rather, to prepare for the spring. That's exactly what they were able to do. And then they built off that sort of momentum when they went into March. Of course, we have great facilities here, indoor facilities at Khaki to train in, one of the best in the state, in my opinion. It's just a top of the notch facility, and our players are able to take great advantage of that, come out in March against some big time competition over spring break, and then into April and place very well. April, 4th place finish, 2nd place finish, 1st place finish, right? So that's how they kicked off the month of April. And I think a lot of that stems back to what happens in the fall, the preparation through the winter, coming out there in the spring and kicking some butt right away. So it's great to see for the team. And then they, obviously placed really well in the GLIAC championships, finishing second and taking on to the NCAA East Regional. So it was a lot of fun to see. And this team, throughout their journey from the season, the growth, I think, is pretty apparent as well.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the GLIAC championship, right? You look at the stats overall. I mean, we stayed consistent, right? Regardless of whether there was a par 3, par 4, par 5. And we kind of saw that discrepancy last year when we were talking about this team. They really did a great job of being able to limit bogeys. I think they did a really good job of that. Out of the 4 teams that made the final, we were 3rd overall at limiting bogeys, which you limit bogeys, you're in great position, right? Limit doubles, limit those big chunk numbers. Obviously, you want to see them get a little bit better at par 3s, at the short stuff. We have a lot of power hitters. I mean, Tatum, we talked to Cameron, and a lot of those players have that philosophy of hit the ball long, right? Be able to just take a lot of yardage right off the tee. And so maybe that's the area of improvement right now that they can look into next year, maybe be a little bit better on those touch finesse things, but there's always room to improve. But I think it's just impressive to see how this team doesn't care about a leaderboard, doesn't care about where they're sitting. It's just where do we need to get to and how we need to do it, whether it's a different strategy. And I think that's something, especially, like Tatum, as athletes go, you just have to adjust on the fly when it comes to that stuff. And they certainly did that.
Well, I agree with what Brody said. I mean, the early season winnings, the consistent top finishes for them, that totally helps during postseason. And I think they had a steady improvement throughout their season. There wasn't a bad loss that they had. They just really tried their best to finish in the top. So I think that definitely helped them in the postseason.
Absolutely. We'll talk about some notable players here on the women's side, then we'll flip over to the men's. I think overall, obviously, we mentioned Cameron Shannon really kind of leading the way for this group. But especially, down the stretch, we saw, some great play from Lizzie Anderson, especially how about Ashley Tomsma as well as a freshman, really stepped up. That was a huge, huge piece of their run this year. And this is just a very deep team that, Coach Coach Stark moved the lineup quite a bit around, who was in that 5 and who would be the necessary scores for that tournament. It really didn't matter. And it's really just, it feels cliche to say that, but it didn't matter because no matter who it was, you obviously had Cameron, you had Lizzie, the right experienced players at the time playing very well. Then you had the young players, rotating in, doing their job, continually shooting consistent scores. And that's all you can ask for from that good of a team.
Another freshman as well, Kylie Walker, was unbelievable. I don't want to take the format of the show away, but she's going to be my breakout candidate. Okay. I think you finished the year that strong. I mean, she was the best finisher on the team individually. In the NCAA national championships, and she finished the year hot. So I think coming off a freshman campaign where she was growing through the year and finishing as strong as she did, she's one of those players that could rise to the top and be the next Cameron Shannon type of player in a couple of years. But just the consistency that you said, Brandon, from Lizzie and Cam at the top of the lineup, so impressive. And that's what you need from your veterans, right? You don't need necessarily them to be consistently at the very top of the standings all the time. You just need them to be consistent in their own game, in their leadership roles, and that's what those players were able to do.
Absolutely. And we'll flip now over into the men's side of things. Overall, still a really great season. Obviously, not a national championship berth. Very, very close, finishing just on the outside of that cut line there in 7th. Need the top 5, I believe, to get in out of the East Regional, out of the Midwest Regional, I should say, finishing 8th there in St. Joseph. Really good overall. I mean, they played so well, too, in the GLIAC championships, just coming up just a bit short. We've seen how this team's battled all year. And I think especially it goes out to this team has showed they can play at that top level, be in contention, be at the top of the leaderboard. I think it was just really the consistency that really kind of was a struggle for the men's side a little bit, kind of flipping the script quite a bit when you look back at the results, starting maybe a little bit higher in the leaderboard, 3rd and 4th, then maybe falling down a little bit to 6th or 7th later on. So you can see that they have that kind of a little bit of a difference in how they play compared to the men, which it can be a very positive thing. We've seen it end up working out these the last 2 years, especially. I mean, you look back at the GLIAC championship year, that's kind of how they played as well. But I think overall, a lot of great success from the men's side as well.
So much success. And that's part of the consistency that we've talked about from this program and what Coach Stark has been able to do. It's not just the women's or the men's team. It's both teams year over year.
Right.
And for the men, you said, Brandon, too, the consistent play throughout the season was something that sort of was an issue at times. And that's sort of what got us, I think, in the Midwest Regional, 13th place after day one, battled all the way back to 8th, which you only say, okay, climbing 5 spots, that's nothing crazy. In golf, that is a seriously high jump. Like that's a big bar to overcome and shows a lot of heart, a lot of character from this team. So I think, just sort of buckling down, being more consistent throughout the season, narrowing some of those peaks and valleys to be more in the middle, hopefully towards the peak, obviously, but take away some of those lower results. And this is a team that can still compete for a national championship. They were close last year, and they made the NCAA tournament once again this season, one of the best teams in the nation.
Absolutely. If you're telling me you could save that many strokes on a round, I mean, I want whatever they got. That's what I want. I want to be able to save that many shots per round. But especially Tatum, I'm looking on the men's side. What was something that really impressed you about their season?
Well, I think they're definitely like one of those teams that are very, very solid, like upper middle of like the pack. They can be up there with like the cool teams.
Yeah.
I think if they just find their consistency and just pinch out a couple more top finishes, they'll be a great team. They've got it next year. They have some good leaders like McCoy. He's a great leader for this team. So if they just bring in some of that consistency, bring in some more wins, I think they'll be great next year.
Yeah, I think that it's a really good expectation to have for both programs now is, we expect them to be in GLIAC contention. We expect them to be in regional contention every year.
Yeah, that's sort of what the expectation is at this point. And again, it speaks more to what Coach Stark has been able to do in his time coaching the Bulldogs.
Yes.
That's where he's elevated this program to where there's an expectation to compete nationally.
Absolutely. Right. And you look at the schedule, right? And it's really similar to the women's side. We'll touch on some of the other ones as well. They expect to play at that level, and they play those tough tournaments right out of the gate, right? They go to Findlay in October. They play at Dock Sprague. They play in those tournaments that some teams, frankly, they kind of chicken out a little bit. They kind of get scared out of playing in some of those tournaments for how many good teams there are. I mean, they go to Florida. They play well. They play in the Carolinas, right? Even going to face Coker, right? Coach Stark's old school. That was pretty cool that they added that to the schedule this year. Indianapolis, Ken Partridge, as we mentioned, as well as the Motor City Meltdown. I mean, they've just shown, right, with their schedule, schedule that they're not afraid of anybody. They want to go play those tough courses. They want to be challenged early in the year. And you see some other teams, take different approaches, try to get the confidence and score up and then go play the tough courses. But it really does feel like, especially with this team, what Coach Stark, Coach Ramirez, right, have really lined up, they want those tough courses. They want that philosophy. And frankly, it's working. If it ain't broken, why are you fixing it?
And you don't improve by not challenging yourself.
No.
Right. So you gotta push yourself. That's the time to do it, is early in the season. What are we made of? And then we find out that we're made of NCAA tournament material. So I think that's an amazing job and a credit to the coaching staff and really to the GLIAC as a whole to schedule these types of events for our teams to be able to compete on the national level. And it just, again, we're going to come back to it, but that consistency for the men's team is the big thing, starting off on a better foot in round one of an event.
I think coaching too is a big aspect of this. I mean, you can definitely tell that good coaching plays a role for both teams to have such a successful season. And yes, like challenging matches are the way to go, because seeing how you perform in those only sets you up for better results in postseason. So I think props to the coaching.
And golf is such a mental game just naturally. Oh. You need that level-headed presence like Sam to sort of not really dial you in, but keep you focused, when you have a bad shot, because it's golf. Everyone's going to have a bad shot, right? How do you respond from that? Well, sometimes having that little voice in your head, keeping you calm, keeping you collected is such a huge thing. And I think that's one thing that Sam does very, very well.
Absolutely. And you look at the stats, especially for how aggressive this team can play. Like you look at par fours, they're rearing back. They
get after it, man.
They are pulling out driver on these fours that are drivable or getting up within wedge range. They're taking that aggressive approach, right? And that's certainly something impressive. I mean, you look at the regional, they were tied for second with most eagles in the regional tournament at 4. It only trailed Finley, who had 6. 6 also is outrageous.
Yeah, what are we doing here?
What is going on? You guys are Bryson DeChambeau on your team. What's going on here? But I mean, it's just crazy to see how aggressive this team can be. But on the flip side, you see this team high up on the double bogey stuff, right? You're looking at those numbers. That's where that level of aggression is great. Attack the 4s. Let's go get birdies. Let's not settle for pars and try to get them on the 5s and 3s only. This team sees that as an opportunity. However, right, where is the drawback of, is it too aggressive, and limiting those doubles? Because if they limit doubles, we're talking about a second team in the national championship. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. If they limit those doubles, we're talking about second team in the national championship. That's probably going to be the focal point in this offseason. I'm sure they're going to talk about.
I'm pretty sure we, if I remember correctly, Brandon from last year, I'm pretty sure we had the same conversation about the men's team. Just, man, they can get after it. Like when they connect and when they're on, boy, they're so dangerous, because you can eagle a par 5 easily if you're getting after it, but bad tee shot, and all of a sudden you're looking at, okay, can I save a bogey? And then it becomes tough to one putt if you're not getting a good enough approach shot and things of that nature. So maybe the lack of consistency isn't the right phrase that we should be using. Maybe it's the risk reward and the pros and cons of that play style. When it's on, top 2 in the nation. I mean, that's we've seen that already. When it's off, all right, well, you can't overcome a bad first round. Usually it's tough to do.
Absolutely. And I think the resiliency mentally for both these teams, I mean, it's the reason why they're playing so well in these regionals. I really do. And I mean, Tatum, you guys, especially from your perspective with volleyball and knowing a lot of these athletes. I mean, we talked to multiple from men's and women's on the show. It's mentality. That's really the difference of what makes and breaks these great golf teams. And they work on that kind of stuff. I mean, similar to what you guys do with volleyball.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a handful of them on the pod, and we've had some of like the team leaders on the pod, and just hearing them, like a lot of what they were talking about was just more mentality over strategy and skill. And I think that does play a huge role in sports success. So it's just cool to see how successful they were after hearing them talk about their mentality and how it plays a big role.
They don't throw clubs. That's the difference in how good they are and mentally than we are just as hobby golfers at the end of the day. But highlighting some men's players, and then we'll obviously get into our breakout candidates. I mean, obviously, McCoy Badgiola has been incredible as a Bulldog, right? In his second season, we were like, man, it's going to be hard to top that freshman year last year. And he really stayed right there. He was the top dog for the majority of the year. Shane Buffet in his senior season, boy, he played well during times this season. Sam Havey was a guy that I believe was mentioned as a breakout last year and was correctly picked. I don't know who it was, Brody. We'll have to go back into the archives to find out. Zach Kerner obviously is the guy that really helps and leads this team as a senior. And there's a lot of really, really good upside players as well for next year's team. Not maybe only losing 2 seniors, 2 pivotal seniors as far as this rotation goes. But you still got a lot of guys, juniors and sophomores that have experience and they're ready to roll.
Yeah, all those guys that you just mentioned played pivotal roles on the team. And how about Cole Putnam starting to step up towards the end of the season as well in his sophomore campaign, showing a lot of promise for the future. Another guy that's absolutely worthy of a breakout pick, and I think certainly can be. And that's just sort of the you lose guys and you reload guys sort of mentality that Coach Stark has had. And you know, as a freshman, if you can come in and be an impactful player like McCoy was last year, that's great. But otherwise, your job is to improve as your freshman so that by the time you're a sophomore and the end of your sophomore season, you can really push into that consistent top 5.
Absolutely. So now with that, it'll be our breakout candidates. We're not sure who Brody's picking, if you were paying attention earlier in the show. But go ahead and repeat, Brody, why you picked your individual pick from earlier in the show.
Yeah, I think Kylie Walker, just the way that she ended the season was super impressive. And we see this all the time with freshmen, right? It takes players time, not just in golf, but in sports in general, to get accustomed to the college way of athletics, the college way of life. Okay. And when the switch flips, a lot of the times it just stays on. So I think that's sort of what the trend is for Kylie. And I'm excited to see her career unfold starting next season.
Yeah, it should be very exciting indeed. I'm looking especially at a player that was nominated actually earlier on this year for an award, believe it or not, at the ESPYs. Obviously wasn't a contributor later on in the year, but Will Heavysides, man, he could be a really good player for this team just based on, looking where the personnel is. He might be a guy that's slotted in next year. Obviously, we got freshmen that are going to be playing, right, that we don't know yet, right? We don't just know the names at this point and how they play. So I'm looking at him as maybe a guy that could be a breakout player this year, next year as a freshman, right? Obviously coming in from Calgary, right? Getting his feet wet in Michigan, how to play this, because even though the surfaces might see the same state to state, it's not even close. It never is. And you go down to Florida, it's a much different surface than it is here. So I really like Will's future. I think he could be a guy you might not have seen a lot of this year, but you're going to see a lot more of next year, just based on obviously having to fill the holes of some of these seniors, and even potentially, you got to remember some of the juniors on the rosters might be their 4th year and they've got their degree and they're going, right? It just is that situation. We're still dealing with the COVID stuff. So I think Will could be that kind of a breakout player. Tatum, last but certainly not least.
I have to agree with Kylie Walker. I think how you finish a season and when you can clutch up in hard moments, there's always those players that just kind of step up to the plate out of nowhere. So I think I would have to agree for that one. And then for men's, I was thinking Cole.
Ooh, yes.
Same kind of deal there.
Yes. I believe he was picked last year too.
Oh, well, I'm picking him again because I wasn't here last year.
That's totally fine.
That doesn't count, but I'm going to have to go with Cole for the men's team.
Okay, yeah. I believe Cole was picked as a freshman. We saw the improvement, but it's, the ceiling's still up there.
Yeah, he's still young. He's still young. He had a good season, but I think definitely he can be a player that is a standout next year.
Okay, there you go. There's our 3 picks.
There you go.
Those are the ones you're picking for your scrambles this summer, right there.
Check back in next
1,
summer.
2, 3. Yeah.
Let's be honest. I'll play with any of these guys in a scramble. All of them.
Oh,
both
please.
teams. They're going to be better than me. We'll shoot better. Let's do it.
You can learn some tips.
It's called a scramble, but it's really just going to be their individual score.
It's really me playing golf and not using my score. That's what would happen, and that's great because who doesn't want to shoot a better score?
I mean, at this point, money on the line, I might take those guys. Maybe the NCAA is listening and they're not supposed to do that. Shh, don't tell anybody at this point. They're not playing. Why would we say that? No, it doesn't make any sense. We wouldn't do that. So, but thank you all for tuning in here. Episode 2 now in the books. 2 down, I believe 9 to go. Something like that. Maybe 10.
Yeah.
It'll just depend.
Right.
Depends how we break it up.
Rough estimate.
Yeah, rough estimate. We still got a long way to go, but it's going to be over before we know it.
Yeah, it always is. It always is. Summer goes fast.
Always does. Any last thoughts, guys?
I'm excited for next week.
Yeah, I was going to say that. He took the words out of my mouth.
Well, I guess we're all 3 very excited. So we will see you next time here on Behind the Bulldogs. Be sure to get yourself followed, whether it's on the Instagram from Tatum, right? At @behind_Bulldogs.
Yep,
right? Yes,
that's the Instagram.
There it is. So
go follow it. Comment, give suggestions, give us feedback. Only nice things, though.
Yeah, only nice things.
I don't want to hear the negative feedback.
No. We can't take the negative stuff. But you can also get your preset dial to WBRN so you don't miss out. And I will see you next week right here on Behind the Bulldogs. Take care, everybody.
See ya.